Okay, so far in the Third Age, some exciting stuff has happened. Let's kind of take a look country by country. The Poles have managed to vassalize all of Lithuania. I guess that's their biggest move, although they're playing around. They've got a claim in Brandenburg now. Getting some interesting movement within the imperial territory again, trying to encroach. They have no possibility of going east, so all their focus is driven westward here. And they have no threat from the east, which is problematic, to tell you the truth. And will become even more so. We'll see how Era 4 handles Poland. Turkey has been trying to solidify their position. Not a lot happening there. I mean, they're getting things under control, but they have some problems trying to incorporate all that former Mamluk territory. France also trying to solidify their position and get their national, unrest in order. Protestantism spread back down deeper. It also spread down deeper into Bavaria. There's no counter to it. There's no counter-reformation here. Spain. Well, Spain was in the shitter. And then a great man arose, Oliver Cromwell, essentially. Oliverus Cromwell, I don't know. Anyway, not only is Spain itself in a little better shape, although there's still problems in Spain, but the Netherlands is more willing to accept him. That leads me to believe that this is actually a Protestant in Spain, or a more tolerant government. And, we got a hell of a leader there, as you can see. He overthrew and executed Philip II a little after Elizabeth's death. Now, Elizabeth lived a fair amount of time. I don't know why Philip lived so long. I get the feeling the cards came out in the wrong order, is all. But that's fine, because Elizabeth showed up way early. That's not really Elizabeth. That's someone else. And I don't know, given that Henry converted to Protestantism, etc., we're assuming that, it's a Tudor, but it's probably not the one. Yeah, maybe Edward never was born or whatever. And a very young and very vibrant Elizabeth took the throne. England's not been very successful in a lot of things. I mean, they've got themselves under control, but they haven't really expanded in any ways. There's threat of civil war and whatnot in place still. Even though Cromwell's over there, the English Civil War card is something different, which causes them problems that Cromwell could solve, essentially. And then for Austria, in the midst of the 30 Years' War card here for power struggles, they're at war with Saxony, and they've got themselves a nice bankroll of points that are going to come at the end of this turn, or at the end of this round, I guess. I don't know. Often the case, I may have held on to the camera for too long playing the first half or whatever. Although it doesn't feel like that many rounds have gone around. I don't know how many have. I did do a kind of flurry of them. But both Poland and Turkey have passed. Turkey retired its debt, which is a good thing. I did a reorg, but I'm going to spend a cube and $2 to get this card. Another exceptional year comes back. There's actually 2 of them in the very small discard pile. It's only the first 5 that count, the way I read it. But that looks like something I can do, and it can clear up one of my unrests without having to use a military cube. My military cubes are going to be devoted to either moving or building an army there. And then doing a siege. Now I have an artillery, so I can do the siege. But that means I wouldn't be able to clear the 2 unrests that I have. I paid 3 military cubes to clear up their unrest problems. I'm going to keep the siege till later. That, I think, is less of a major concern, although you would think, you know, that a revolting city is a worse thing than a little bit of unrest. I actually think the unrests being on the board are worse because they cause dice to be rolled. This city can stay rebel indefinitely. The only thing it does is it cuts into my income and my manpower if I don't clear it up. Let's think about England and the possibility of King Francis here, or Francisco. So what I'm worried about is the English Civil War. Charles I is not good. If I don't pick this card, I don't have to take him. If I do pick it, I should do it now. Do I want to yield to Parliament? That would lose me all kinds of stuff, and I would gain diplomacy. Doesn't sound good. And rule without Parliament gives me a couple of victory points, but all kind of nastiness seems to happen. I don't really want all that nastiness to happen. I don't know that anybody does, but it is also the card with, well, it is a card with $4 on it. Which means if I take the $6 card, that may be the most appealing card to someone. The $6 card is not a bad card for anyone particularly. It's these witch trials. The Iberian revolts is also not a bad card for anybody, but I can take it at no cost and not get that king. What that means to me is, and if I was in the lead, this would be totally different, that I might want to, instead of continuing on with this trade operation that's just not working, declare war on Scotland. I have a claim. France has an alliance. Want to come in, France? What's going to come of it? I don't know. You know, I will look at that carefully. It may be that France can declare war on England and not prosecute the war, and that may work out just fine. Because losing a war is not that bad. Continuing a war is bad. Okay? So, well, losing a war to a white peace is that bad. So that's kind of problematic. But also, denying an alliance is bad. So the first thing is, if I make Scotland an inactive ally in the war, the English are at war with them. They'll fight them just like any NPR. I will not be involved in that peace. Like, they don't have to defeat France in order to take that peace. If France and England come to a white peace, both sides will lose 1 prestige. Now, Scotland calls on France. That definitely happens. And let's see. Where are the Casaspelli? I don't have a marriage, do I? Oh shit. England has a marriage to the Scots. Ugh. Maybe I declare war on Ireland instead. In which case, I don't worry about any of this. Oh, we don't move that. We move this little war here to Ulster. Ireland's not sufficient. I have to declare war on both Irish territories. I can do that. I'll declare war on all of them. It's 3. It's actually smaller than Scotland, so that works fine. And I can build an army, and no one cares about about Ireland at all. So I can stop looking this up. Yeah, I forgot about the English marriage there. We don't want to declare war there. What we want to do is, gosh, we can't vassalize them because they're French allies. What we want to do is the Gain Alliance card, which allows us to replace these cubes and take over the French alliance, and then we can vassalize them and incorporate them normally. This would be a great turn to go to war with them, but we have a marriage. Maybe that marriage will end up disputed or something. That's fine. Big pile of money, we buy 3 mercenary units. That's $12 on its own. We had to buy ourselves, well, we did buy ourselves a light ship out. We can't do that. Fuck. See, I really want that light ship there. And the reason for that is that if that's there, then I can more easily reach both North America and Africa. Of course, Africa's a sea. I have to get there from there. So I may take that $4 back. I don't think I need to buy that ship. I thought I was being really, really clever with that, but the Irish have a navy, of course. Okay. What that means is I took a build as my action. I might still want to build a ship, build ships. Let's see what my shipping is going to be. So my next move is going to be a naval move, and it has to be to the northeastern Atlantic, but I can move other stuff there. And that would hook this back up. For some reason, that's not hooked up. I think I cheated in placing this, but I can't go back. Yeah. Sure looks like I did. But anyway, I had all kind of plans. I made a fuck up. Too bad. Can't repair it without going far back. So yeah, we're at war with both the Irish states, and we have a mostly mercenary army to send there. Fires off a trade card. Now, one thing I'm not doing is I'm not trying to memorize which cards have passed and not looking through them or anything. Again, that might be a viable or valid thing to do in the game. The Austrians managed to get a trade section that is where they're able to, which is in the Saxony region. Anything adjacent to that, that's my land. Well, any route that I can trace is allowable, and I have an alliance there. And I also don't know, it might be that the Empire is traceable as well. But I get kind of a minimal money off of it. Still, it's better than $2, I get 5. Austria can't really expect much more than that. My finances are not in great shape, so I wanted to do that. Probably going to play the man of the church for a cardinal. Go around again? I don't know. Sure. Crap me. This exceptional year I pulled isn't going to help me right now. Now, it might have still been worth picking up. I don't have to pay anything to hold it at the end of the turn if I end up with 5 or more. It also is a ruler, which is useful. But I was planning on playing that, getting some additional cash, fixing one of my unrests. That's not going to work. There are, well, do I want to move my army? Do I want to build a new army? I just want to move my army. I'll move it up here. It also moves its army for a siege. Remember a while back when I scooped this up instead of my pipe? I keep doing that. This was for the correct reasons. I'm over on France, I grabbed my tea, my lighter, and I scooped this up. It's a mechanical action that I've done a few times, so it kind of makes sense that I did it earlier. England. England at war. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 navies, 5 navies at sea. Move this here. I'll shift a light ship into that fleet as well. And now we're going to fight an Irish navy with 2 ships. For this, we need these. I don't think we have an admiral. We're going to pay a cube for doing this. I don't think we have an admiral. I don't know if we'd want to use one if we did. There's no naval technologies in play here, but those 2 ships are sunk by my heavy ships. So I don't have to worry about rolling for the English. I do have to roll for the Irish, though. And they get 2 hits. Okay. That's going to be damaged heavy ships. See, damaged heavy ships causes me a problem because then I can't ship my force across. Gotta look at the rules on this because I don't know how damaged ships work. If they stay in the fleet or if they immediately go to port, in which case the whole fleet has to go to port and I've been defeated. I may just take 2 hits on a heavy ship, which would really suck because they're expensive, but I have 3. I don't really need them. They're not as useful as the light ships, which is why nobody's building them. But if you're going to have a naval war, they're really, really important. I think I can actually take both hits on heavy ships without hurting myself. I don't even have to worry about whether I can transport, right? Can transport 3 per, so yeah. Because the way this is termed is heavy ships can take 2 hits before being removed as casualty, indicate that a heavy ship has been damaged by laying the ship on its side or positioned vertically for the standard edition, which is why I think that's not wooden pieces. But it may be these wooden pieces and not all the meeples and plastic stuff and everything. Maybe there's counters for other stuff. I don't know. You know, or maybe there's standees vertically. I don't know. I'm assuming the fleet is like a long piece. That would be obvious if you did that. Okay. Oh, there wouldn't be any captures. They didn't win the battle anyway. If it does not take another hit, it will immediately be repaired if its fleet ends a turn or round in a friendly port. Okay. I need to understand what those terms mean. So, let us look over here. Yep. So this whole thing is a round with phases, and players take turns. So, as long as I spend a military pip or whatever to move the fleet into a port, they'll get fixed then. Or I can wait till the end of the what I like to call turn, but the end of the round and land it in a viable port so that I can repair it then. And right now these are just damaged ships, and they're fine. Okay, then, as part of my action, I move into here. Now, I'm facing a 3 military force. I have my king there. We have no cards or anything. There is no general. What kind of king do I have? I have a 2 cav king. I almost never build cav. It's expensive. Not as good at sieges. And yes, it has some movement abilities that I guess maybe improve it. There's some cards that help it, but I can't think of what. Hey, orange dice, orange pieces, right? Okay. And my advantage is Janissaries and cannon if I hit the shit out of them. I do not have the military drill, though. I get hit once. I'll take that on a mercenary, because why not? And we were successful, so I get my... We were successful in the naval battle, too. So we get our cube back for the first of those successes, at least. Austria. Oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. Austria was going to play Man of the Church, I think. I have like nothing I can do. I have cubes and nothing to do with them. No unrest. I'm like the happy country. I have unrest in these. If I suppress one of them, That would help because the claim will get rid of the other two. So that might be not an unwise thing to do. Sounds reasonable to me. There we go. It's going to look a little weird while it's there. And now we whip all the way around again. Nobody's caring about these events, huh? Who can take them? France and Britain. France is running low. France is going to do their siege. They've got a cannon, so they can take the 2-point city that they've got there. Likewise with its siege. We whip back around. We're running low on battery. I really should stop at some point. It's just this end part of the turn, there's so few decisions. It's like everything's kind of on a roll and happening. So you can see how quickly I'm able to make the decisions. I don't have to agonize at all at this point. At least not for the most part. Oh, naval tradition. How? Build up to 2 ships per port. And it's cheaper. Cheap navigation, too. This is not a bad card. I may want to play that. But I got more important things to do right now. All I have is... Oh, no, I have an artillery. So 2 cubes captures all of Ireland. And I went and grabbed counters, but then I put them in the wrong Ireland. So let's move them to the right Ireland. And again, we get these unrest markers in there. I don't know. I find things like that amusing. I'm sorry. Okay. That gets me to the Austrians. Austrians, running low, running low. Do I want the marriage? Marriage doesn't help me. I've got all my marriages deployed. Counter-espionage isn't going to help me. I could deploy one of these as an advisor. What was I going to do? I was going to do man of the church. $2. Battery's going to run out if I don't do something about it. $3 there. I don't think I played a cube. That goes over here. Now the Papal Curia is mine, which doesn't give me much. It's just absolutely mine, so I get a prestige off of it, which seems like a big deal. But it does give me control where Spain had control before. What can I do with that? Well, I could excommunicate someone if I really hate them, but I mean, Turkey is the obvious choice, and I can't. Poland, I could excommunicate. That probably would be kind of dicky, but then it's like, oh, I'm expending my resources to screw up another person who's tied with me for second. Now, Poland's going to gain a lot, but I'm going to get a lot of prestige this turn. I don't want to make enemies, There's no reason for that. No reason. All right, that moves this over here, and this is done. I could swap batteries and keep going, but I was planning on stopping, so I will. Now, what you'll notice, I grabbed these white counters because I'm out of occupied markers. The occupied markers, the other side of them, are these battlegrounds. I kind of really need them on the board. I've only got them for the currently active power struggle. One power struggle at a time is on there. So, and there's not a lot of war going on, right? What's occupied? 3 territories in Saxony and 3 territories in Ireland. Six territories. That's it. In conjunction with a power struggle. The counter mix is not sufficient in this game, and that's clear. There have been a number of places where that's just been absolutely obvious. Is that a terrible thing? Nah. The counter mix isn't sufficient in the original either. I have to use all kind of different counters, and for control markers, I often have to put them at junctures or kind of in between junctures to indicate that all 4 of these are controlled by someone. The map is such a cluttered mess in that game. It's so tiny in Europe that half of it is just a mnemonic device to remind me that, something over there is happening. Somebody owns this property, whatever. Or maybe create boundaries of areas. So like the interior of Poland won't have counters in it as much because Poland starts out huge. Austria-Hungary starts out huge. The Habsburg territory, actually. It's not called Austria in that. Doing some of my thinking and drumming, if you've ever watched that video, about the situation. And I started thinking about the Spanish situation and that what is it? Revolutionary ideology as opposed to, I mean, it's probably nationalism is what it really is, given that the game goes into the 1820s. But in a way, it's sparked by the French Revolution, right? It would be possible, plausible, that an anomalous character or movement could cause something like that to happen early. That's the kind of thing that I kind of wish would happen. Let me explain something. Let me swap batteries and I'll tell you about it. What I want to say is about the original EU, how events were handled in that, okay? Again, they're fixed and scripted items, very, very detailed, much more so and more rigid than these tend to be. Yes, there are some weak ones like plagues and famines and unrest that's just generalized and stuff like that that can happen from the event system. The event system is multi-tiered, but one of the big things that happens in it is that all of these fixed sort of historical events are rolled up on this complex chart, and they get marked off as they get done, and then usually they can't be done again, and you just skip them and you move down the chart to another event, making certain events more likely, other ones less likely. Things like the Dutch revolt, for example, become almost absolutely required by a certain point in the game. Like it would be almost impossible for it to not happen. But most of them have just a couple of entries, or maybe just one entry. So you might not get them in the course of an era, right? And then you've moved into the next era, and it's gone, right? So it's not like it's this fixed deck of cards that you know what's going to come. It is a it's very likely to give you events in more or less historical order, but it's not guaranteed to. More than that, and this is the kind of exciting thing, it's possible to fall into a prior period's event table, I think, and it's certainly possible to push into a later period's event table, which is what kind of really excites me. It's like this idea of, hey, what if Spain truly like developed this revolutionary nationalism under this leader? You know, what if something like that were to happen? What would it all be? You know, and it would create this new religion essentially, just like it does elsewhere, that replaces the old religious struggle. Right, the nationalist struggle would become a different thing, and that would be really, really helpful to somebody who has a mess in their country. You know, France being the heart of nationalism didn't make a lot of sense, but the idea of like a pan-religious, now you could argue a lot of things, like you'd have to research tolerance. Or play some card to, you know, go around it but through some card or something like that. You'd have to do something to get it. And in fact, people really ought to be researching tolerance, especially these problematic countries like Spain and France. And soon to be Austria. But anyway, the idea is that you never know what events are definitely going to happen in the game. And you never know necessarily when they're going to happen. Like I said, the Dutch revolt's kind of a special case. It's got a hell of a lot of entries on it, and they're crowded at a point in the chart where they become more and more likely as other events get played out. So it's almost impossible for that not to happen. And other big things like the Spanish succession and stuff like that are kind of the same way. They are going, remember the Spanish succession never actually happens, but the event gets recorded. It just doesn't get triggered is the issue there. But most of the events, most of the big defining events are going to happen, and they're going to happen in the era they show up in. But it's not guaranteed. It is not guaranteed. It is absolutely plausible for one of them to be missed entirely. It is fairly likely that at least one of the big events will happen in entirely the wrong time. Now that can cause real problems because some of the events are national aligned. So like Russia may not be in the game, but may face an event that assumes that there's a Russian player. That's problematic, and you have to make up rules as you go to handle shit like that. But it is kind of cool, right? Just this, that you don't know that history will unfold exactly as it does. Now, it doesn't unfold exactly as it does here either. Note that the Council of Trent didn't happen. Why didn't it happen, though? It didn't happen because no one made it happen. A player had to make the choice to trigger that event. And the players who were left with the opportunity to trigger an event had no desire for that. And so we have this weird mess where, you know, Protestantism is going to spread everywhere. Anyway. I just wanted to go into that because I really kind of like the old EU, like what that paradigm kind of represents, where, yeah, you may have an idea of what history is supposed to happen, but it's okay if you don't know exactly when things are going to happen and whatnot. And you certainly, even if you know what the deck is, you really don't know when they're going to happen. Now, you could make an argument. There's a lot less ages in this game, but there's not a lot less half ages. I think there's 7 ages, if I recall correctly, in EU. Of course, there's the game 7 ages, so I may be confusing that. Yeah. That's a kind of neat game, but also annoying as hell. But it's sort of a history of the world, but with a lot of chrome and complexity on it that make it more interesting and more obnoxious. I wonder where I fell off the train, man. I fell off the train. Yeah. Now I'm just completely lost. But yeah, I mean, I like the yeah, okay, so I know what it is. Yeah. If you know the deck, which you're supposed to know if you're playing this game, that's kind of the assumption. Sort of like you're supposed to know the deck in Paths of Glory. And you can't even, in Paths of Glory, you can't play it well without that happening. Here, I feel like the randomness of the deck in conjunction with the selection and everything, it's okay if people don't know. But somebody who knows the deck and somebody who doesn't, it's going to be a major difference. It'll be the same issue with EU, though. If somebody knows what the events are that are coming up, they're at a real advantage over someone who doesn't. But it's a bigger advantage here because if you know the Council of Trent is in the deck, right? And this is the kind of permutations I want happening. If you know the Council of Trent is in the deck, then you can play and not pick an event because you know what events are coming and you know what you have to wait for, and you have to make sure that that happens because you need counter-reformation to protect your country from Protestantism or whatever. Or you need it for one of your goals, you know. But yeah, the thing I was trying to say, and this is where I got derailed and I ended up somewhere else instead. In EU, I think there's 7 ages. And in this, there's only 4 ages, but each age is divided into half decks that are predetermined by the scenario. And so essentially, instead of 7 ages, you have 8 ages in this. You really do. Even though, you know, there's a special end of age procedure and everything. That's really just stacking the deck. That's all it does. I seem to remember there were automatic victory conditions in this. Wonder what they were. pretty sure there are. Victory peace conditions. That's not what I'm looking for. I think there's a way the game ends automatically. And now I have to look. Winning the game. Is that it? No. I really seem to remember there being an automatic victory condition here. Like something like, maybe it's if you get all your towns out. Which, you know, Turkey's not that far. They start building big towns, and I don't know where it would be. I mean, I don't even know where it would be. They said 26 was the page, but that's victory in a war. Maybe they didn't say 26. It's not there. 29. Yeah, this is the peace in the victory of war. Just flipping through, you know, there are times when you have no idea where something might be. Vaguely remember. Victory and prestige. Here we go. Not seeing anything. Maybe I'm thinking of a different game. Because that seems to end. Power struggles, completing milestones, selecting missions. I'm just not seeing anything. As described, end of game triggered as described on page 11. Okay, let's go there. End of... I don't see any end of game right towards the end of that. There are no more event cards. A player has 100 or more prestige on the prestige track and is at least 20 ahead of all other players. Or if they have all their towns and vassals on the board at the end of phase 5. That latter one feels a little goofy, but you'd have a big chunk of the board. I feel like it's more of a, yeah, you know, see, here's the problem. Two people could be basically dividing Europe. And then one of them reaches it a little quicker, and that feels a little wrong to me, right? If they're set for some cataclysmic clash, I kind of don't want the game to end with the, oh, look who got an extra city before the other guy or whatever. I feel like that's more of a, you know, if somebody manages this, and nobody has yet in any of our playtests or something, but if people have come close, but if somebody ever manages it, we don't want to just leave it, you know, to, hey, you got to start making new pieces or anything like that. And we certainly don't want to tell them, and this is what I thought it was. I thought, hey, if Turkey gets too big, they just can't expand anymore. You know, they got plenty of stuff to do. They can remove towns or whatever, give stuff up in order to achieve their goals or something. That's what I assumed it was, but yeah, I remembered this being there. Anyway, lots of blather for no good use, except that I kind of don't want to go away, which is why I stayed up here and kind of fantasized a little bit. More thinking here. If 3 or more elector areas are Catholic, increase. Yeah, okay. I mean, at least there's that. That feels a little minimal. It feels like this is the plausible results to the 30 Years' War. But honestly, there were times when the Habsburg aims, like after after Wallenstein went in and swept the Danes away. And I got to tell you, the 30 Years' War doesn't feel like the 30 Years' War. Not at all. I mean, it had... So this was like the triggering point, right? Of course, maybe the 30 Years' War continues. I don't know. Maybe there's cards that will keep it going. Because it should last about an era. Maybe a whole era, though. Let me think. 30 years, 4 eras, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 400 years, 100 years, 50 years. Yeah, half a deck seems about right for the 30 Years' War, right? Anyway, one of the major goals that the Austrians had at various times in the 30 Years' War was to bring the empire to heel and, bring back the old kind of Ottonian imperial authority that had existed, where, there was, these were not just a loose collection of states at some points in the empire's history. It wasn't a nationalist state of the variety that, say, France or England becomes, but it also was not much less united than France or England was back in that period. And in fact, may have been more united and more central. It was more centralized than France was, for example, during most of the medieval period. So it's kind of silly to think about, like, the way that people think about it as sort of this ramshackle empire. Yeah, by this period, by the Habsburg period, it is really kind of weakening. But the Habsburgs were looking to reassert that kind of control, and it could have conceivably become maybe not a nation state, but a real power of a sort that, like, it didn't, right? Just like Poland maybe could have formed into something that was functional instead of dysfunctional. But yeah, when I look at, hey, what am I seeing here for the 30 Years' War? So what I'm seeing is something that's very similar to Austria declares war on the Palatinate, or the, I don't know. I don't know how you want to put it. The Palatinate's claiming the imperial throne. Austria goes in and fights them as rebels because of the Bohemia situation. They're claiming the crown of Bohemia. This is how emperors used to act, right? If they basically had a great deal of power in terms of reassigning things, but if they overstepped their power, right? If they overstepped the power that they could reasonably enforce, they might face a widespread revolt. And that's kind of what happened. The Habsburgs tried to assert power over the Palatinate. They succeeded in taking it. Boom, it's done, right? You knocked them out. And then they kept pursuing semi-religious goals, which this kind of feels like here. We're going against the Protestants. It had to be a Protestant, which might lead to conversion. But also, if you want to add to that, there was a great fear and there was a documented desire that the Habsburgs were trying to assert the kind of old empire in place, where they would be able to say, you know what, Hesse-Darmstadt, we don't agree with your inheritance. It's wrong, and we're going to give it to our ally in Brandenburg instead. We think he's got a better claim. And it would just hold. It would just hold. You could rebel against it. You might get other people to rebel with you. You might overthrow the empire and be the emperor then, and largely have the same kind of power, although usually there were interregnums in that sort of power situation. But that's what the Austrians were trying to, well, what the Habsburgs were trying to enforce was a real empire again. And when people say the empire was neither Holy Roman nor an empire, it was actually all of those in one way or another. I mean, you can make an argument that no, it's none of them, but you can also make an argument that it is each of them. It was an empire because the emperor ruled over other sovereigns. That was the big deal. He had a status that was greater than any king. And no country was an empire at that time, right? Yeah, Ottomans. The Byzantines were an empire, right? Its borders were not fixed. It would not be unreasonable except in terms of the logistical possibilities. But the emperor essentially could claim France or England as part of the empire. He just didn't have the power to enforce that well. But, you know, it certainly, the borders of his enforcement area shifted, much as they're shifting here, but they're falling smaller. They're never going to get bigger in this game. And I can buy that, you know, I mean, but theoretically, it was the crown of Charlemagne, the emperor of the West, who, you know, and the claim was that this was the Roman emperor in the West. The divided empire still exists, theoretically, and, you know, whatever. And was it holy or not? I don't know. The Pope crowns the emperor. There are a hell of a lot of other people who are crowned by the Pope. You know, that is problematic because it gives the Pope power over the empire, but it also gives the emperor a position that's a little different from any other royalty. Well, the Pope did crown the emperor at one point. I don't think the Habsburgs went to the Pope ever. Maybe early ones did. And then, how Roman is it? Well, the tradition is the tradition of the Western Roman Empire. Sure, it didn't include Rome. That was another figment, was the Papal States, right? It didn't include Rome, but it included some of the territory in northern Italy, some of the Rhine area, maybe, I don't know, Danube, stuff like that. It included some territory that was historically in the Roman Empire, but it included sort of a broad overarching claim to all of Western Europe. And one that wasn't entirely dismissed by the other rulers of the era. So, you know, it's a cute thing to say. I think it was a great quip at the time, but it really shouldn't be quoted by people who don't understand the empire completely. You know, I'm willing to debate these things, but yeah, it was of a different nature than any kingdom. That is for sure. It was not a kingdom. Anyway, the Habsburgs were trying to reassert that old, you know, either the old Frankish Empire, which really only exists under Charlemagne. The later Frankish kings split it up right away, got into squabbling, and really kind of gave away all kind of glory. And it gets resurrected under the Ottonians. And there may be a couple of other places where it shows, well, there are other places where it shows a great deal of strength. But then the Pope kind of undermined it all, so that's fine. But yeah, you know, in this great religious war or whatever, the sword of God was the emperor. Anyway, France is running quite low on things to do. So they picked themselves an event. And this may give them some opportunities. Let me move some money. They wanted money. You know, why not? But the witch trials, I don't know. They give you a military, but they give you an unrest. Getting an unrest doesn't seem very good. I don't think anybody's going to target me with the witch trials. So I'm going to go with the English Civil War, which only gives me $4 instead of $6. And then I have two choices here. Basically, I don't care what happens to England, right? I can gain a peace or I can gain 2 military. 2 military would do a lot towards fixing my problem. So we're going to do option A, rule without parliament. England scores 2 prestige. Okay. And must exhaust 4 military. Oh, shit. Okay. Fucking hell. So, England bought a bunch of... I thought these were in the exhausted area. England bought a bunch of mercenaries that they did not need to have. So that's 2, 4, 6, $8 that they would have had. I did not see that those were in the available. This is not the first time that I've misread which side things are in. And I do not want them in that position. Like, they wouldn't have spent money for no reason. In fact, I might have bought more boats. Okay. We scored the 2. We must exhaust 4 military. Well, 2 go from here, 2 come from here. I think I may have fucked something up, right? 2 should be at about 7. 4, 5, 6. I may have thrown a military or 2 into there. Fuck. I don't know. We'll leave it as this. Okay. And they gain unrest in each area adjacent to the North Sea trading area. Here's the North Sea trading area. Each area adjacent, that would be all of this. Here. Here. This is North Sea trading area. Now this is an area. It doesn't have to worry about the port. So, yeah, everything's just going under. Alright, England's fucked. And I could really use a Cromwell card at about this time, no? Okay. Distribute 2 more unrest and 7 rebel armies among up to 2 affected areas. Not clear to me what affected areas are. Oh, they gain 1 in each. Oh, fuck. So that was 1 there. Okay. Never mind. Okay. And I'm not in great shape here. So England picks those areas. And now I get 2 more. I'm going to make the big cities go over in the affected areas. And now I get 7 rebel armies in England. And yeah, England's in trouble. Now, clearly the English player would rather not have had this happen. But that doesn't mean that King Francisco would rather not rule without Parliament, right? It's possible to make bad decisions. So, we're going to put the majority of the army down here in the south to siege everything. This other one's more problematic. Like, I could just put these in the south as well. But the English army is tiny. Why don't I... That can take 2. This will take everything. There's only 1 place to take here. If I had thrown the rebellion in Ireland, I could wipe out the English army. But that would cause me problems, and I would rather leave that unrest to deal with itself. And now the French gain their 2. Let's keep this here. Do I want Charles? No. The English don't have to take Charles, and I choose not to. And I get 2 military cubes as the French. Now I've got food working its way. So looks to me like Spain's going to pass. I got water boiling. Spain has no cubes, really nothing they can do except put down an advisors, which sounds like a good idea. Can't play my king, but I can play $4 worth of advisors and increase, because I have tons of money there. And yeah, I hear the water boiling. We'll move this up to the English and let them deal with their problems. This should be here this time. The English have to raise an army now. Now, I have my navy here. I could actually raise 1, 2, I think 3. I don't think it has to be ports only, maybe 4, I don't know. I could raise a small army. Or I could raise a mercenary army here, or here. In fact, might as well raise it there. That'll be the cheapest. Yeah. So I'm going to raise a mercenary army there using a lot of my cash. I'm going to appoint the king to that, as he runs out of Ireland, and launch a big fight against those regulars, or those rebels. I had tried to cheat in other ways. All right. So mercenaries, I can't raise a big mercenary army. And in fact, the army that I raised before was too big. So it's good that I had those rebels, those regulars there. I can only raise $12, three units, $12 worth of units. It's actually the 3 units in there. That's going to cost me a cube. Luckily, I haven't reorganized. I got 2 more cubes I can shift over to try and deal with this. But this is really a vile situation. Now, I can raise armies multiple times. I wish I had the, there's that really nice card that allows you to increase your manpower and raise troops, move troops from exhausted to available at the same time. That's a really sweet card. But that ain't available. Was there an event that would help me? Probably not. I mean, I could get some cash. This will give me a military and more unrest. This could give me a military. So, depending on whether I need money or whatever, I have 1 event left. But right now, I just want to advance, probably get myself in Wales. If I need to build a bigger army to face that bigger army, I will. The Austrians, I don't really see much. Yeah, 2 cubes. Sorry, 1 cube to, oh, I already restored 1. Okay, what am I going to do? I can't think of much. I could convert an area, but I have to own it, not just occupy it. I don't want to play around with any of the diplomacy. I don't think there's any army stuff I want to do. Honestly, I think I'll pass. I don't have a king. That's shitty. And I can't get one. I have no way to access cards. The only way to access cards is to play something that gives you cards. You know, actually there is a way I could access cards. I could make a royal marriage with someone, and that would allow me to draw a card. What do I need a card for? I need a card to be king so I don't get a penalty. Hey, Poland! Hey, buddy, Poland. I don't really know if I want to marry Poland. There are reasons I might want to go to war with Poland. Hey, Spain! Hey, buddy, Spain! Want a military card if you marry me? Marry me and I'll give you a card. I can't think of much reason that they wouldn't. Just seems like a bonus across the board. Spain hasn't even passed. It could be very useful to them. Sure. Let's see. On a 6, Spain is going to hesitate, but no. All right. So we have a... no. Can't do it. Can't do it. I don't have a marriage available. All my marriages are deployed. Okay. It's not that big a deal. I'm going to lose some prestige for having an interregnum. That's all. So I take $2 for my pass, and now things are at the oh look, you might only have one turn left stage in the game, and this is notably problematic for England. Everyone else is kind of run down. You know, I mean, Spain's out of cubes. They're probably going to pass. France, they're going to get 2 more turns, right? Because if they want to turn here, Spain gets to pass, England gets 1 more turn, and then their event. And then, well, Austria just passed, yeah. And then France gets 1 more turn. So if France is going to get 2 turns, England's going to get 1. I got to deal with my food. Should not have done this running up here. Idiotic idea. Before I make food and came up here and played, I again rested my eyes for an hour or so, but basically listening to a news show. I just can't seem to sleep. It's not, so my avoidance techniques that I was talking about, and this is probably really about taxes more than anything else, which of course puts a stress on, you know, your health and everything if you're this much disrupting your life because of something. There's just a constant stress from basically January 10th on. Actually, even before that, January 1st, because I'm like, oh, when is my tax stuff coming? Because I used to always do it real quickly. But anyway, it's not really like I am just consciously deciding, oh, I'll do this instead of the taxes. Sure, in some cases, like, you know, I'm playing my video game, I'm playing this, I'm doing the normal things I would do, because when I think about doing any of the things I don't want to do, it's just like this wave of, like, I don't know, pain is probably the closest it comes. It's like emotional pain, it really is. It's not panic, it's dread. I don't know. Anyway, but like the sleeping thing, I can't control that. I just can't sleep. Like, if I try to sleep, I fail. If I'm not trying to, you know, if I admit that I'm not going to be able to sleep, I stay awake, and, you know, I just stay awake all the time. And this used to happen to me at school too, same shit. For dinner, since I'm kind of out of the food that I normally have, I like buttered noodles. It's probably not that much less healthy than my sandwiches or whatever, you know. I'm not getting any protein other than the butter, but, you know, I don't really need it. Unfortunately, my stocks are depleting greatly, so, you know, unless we get dry weather at some point. The nice thing is I keep feeling like I have this choice. Do I want, you know, to just stop eating? Well, it's not that easy anymore, I guess. I don't know. Skip over a couple. France. So France has more cubes now. They still don't have an administrator of worth. But, you know, Austria was talking about marriages and stuff. Kind of like, I could draw an administrative card and maybe get a bonus there and be able to play this and get rid of some of my problem. Or I could just play my cubes. Because again, there's potential issues to marriages. There's potential advantages too, which is something to keep in mind. A marriage can give you a disputed succession, which can get you into somewhere. It doesn't give you much. It gives you protection from war, though, if you're worried about someone declaring war on you. Oh boy, well, Spain looks like they're just out of everything. And they fired their event off. So, as I was indicating, they are done with the last buck. English take a naval action, I guess, because my army's here, and I sail in there. Don't have to worry about generals. I have my general, a bunch of mercenaries. My general gives me 2 orange dice. Not seeing very well. Buttered noodles do that to me because I end up getting a not noticeable, at least, like a bit of butter on my glasses or something. And I just can't see right, but I can't tell that there's a smear there. Okay. So the English will make their attack. And I've got 1 cannon, and I wipe the shit out of them. Okay. And on their side, they get the normal 3 dice, and they wipe the shit out of me. That'll be 2 hits. I can't take it all on mercenaries. I have to alternate. Which sucks, because I would rather have regulars left, and because I don't want to pay for mercenaries every turn. They're more expensive. But that's a successful battle. Which means I get my cube back. I'm not going to get to use it. This was my last turn. But I cleared out some of the revolt. I still got a big problem here. I could have built my army there, but it wouldn't have been very big. That die roll would have done 4 hits to it. It would have only been size 3, so, you know, my army would have been wiped out. Okay. Where do we go from here? We want the boat. We want the boat, boss. We want the boat. I think France is next. France gets 1 more turn. And then England gets their event, and then the extra event gets to go. I mean, there's no reason to pass. Is there something I want to do? Fire off a trade. Haven't done one. Do I want diplomacy terribly? Well, it's very useful here. It's useful for this. I have a shitty diplomat. I'm just going to pass. I'm going to hold my cube. The trade is unlikely to get me a lot of money. I look like I have enough. I'm not in debt. Good shit. Has money. They're not going to make much. And looking at these, they have enough unrest. They don't really need another one. It would be fun to play the witch trials. There's no question of that. The nice thing about it is it could cause, well, what does it cause? It causes diverse faiths, right? At best. You pick an area that's either Catholic adjacent to Protestant or vice versa. Add crap to it. I mean, if they take tolerance, the area will end up no, if they have tolerance, they end up with turning it to diverse faiths. If they remove everything. Yeah, I mean, this would be a neat thing to fuck with people, but the person I would most want to fuck with is the Turks. Smacking everyone else, it kind of helps me, but again, I have enough problems. I have enough problems. So, we're going to pick the Iberians. And again, we don't really need all that money. Castile, Spain gains 2 unrest in each of Aragon, Portugal, Sicily, and Naples. I think they get to choose it. Well, yeah. I think this is 2. Because if that was a big city, it would flip all at once. Portugal, not my problem. Naples, not my problem. Sicily. Let's put them all in one area, one on the island, on the big island, because then I don't have to deal with naval issues. Now, I get to choose whether they put it down, which puts a total of 8 rebels in the areas there. And we each get stuff. Spain gets troops, but they're not able to put it down or appease them. Well, clearly they want to put it down. God. That's 8, 3, 6, 8. It's hard to do things one-handed. You'd think I'd be used to it now, but, you know, I'm not used to dealing with the little wooden pieces. All right. Let's put the majority here in Aragon. That looks more challenging. I don't know. These guys in Sicily might screw with the Turks, which could be interesting. Yeah, let's put 4 in each. That should be fun. Let the Spanish have something easy to deal with. Castile, Spain gains 2 prestige. Oh, joy. And 2 military. Which again, you know, can't do with it. And I will be gaining 1. And then they have the choice to take Philip IV. But they don't have to, and they don't want to, because they have Cromwell. Something feels wrong. Something feels wrong. Who did the last event before this? Did I not? The English Civil War. I guess I handled them all. I just feel like I didn't handle all my events, but yeah. So this one, I feel like there was another bottom underneath that I didn't deal with. Worst comes to worst, so what? Okay, so we got rebel dice. This doesn't apply to anyone, so everyone has to roll full dice. Obviously, tolerance still comes in. But the English turn, and their entire army is wiped out, mercenaries and all. They lose money, they lose cubes and everything. We got a rebellion over there, which I didn't mark with a cube, did I? They got 3 cubes for captured territory, but they get this too. I also didn't roll for Ireland, which I have to do. But yeah, part of the army got wiped out by attacks. It leads me to wonder, hey, would it have been better if I just triggered that event myself? You know, maybe took the less bad result from it, which is certainly an option. The thing is, there was no guarantee that anyone would trigger it, right? That's kind of the issue that was at play. There were a bunch of iffy things out there. It wasn't necessarily the most attractive, but it turned out that way to whoever did fire it off. So, you know, but sometimes it's maybe best to just take your bad news and swallow it. I still got to roll for the Irish. No, wait, I did roll for them. I remember rolling 3 dice and then 1. My way around, Austria didn't really get too badly impacted. Poland, not too much. Turkey, wow, they got really lucky. A lot of their territories that were in unrest aren't anymore. A lot of pitchforks there. It was unaffected, they had nothing. And Spain, well, they had a lot of troops fatigued. And in a sense, that actually just makes sense. These are towns that are in unrest. Their troops are unavailable. desertions, whatever, refusal to arise. The French, oh no, the French did lose something. They had to roll for this. They lost a military unit. They didn't have any available, so their one cannon is gone. Which sucks because the cannon's expensive. You know, it's like $6 more than a boat. All right, on to the Protestant, or the spread of religious ideas. It's Protestant, and that's all that is spreading. This is, again, nobody gets to pick. So if there are no infectious clusters, auto-resolution. Spread infection faiths into adjacent, alternating between Protestant and counter-reform, starting with Protestants, into adjacent areas. Preference goes to areas with at least one town, then areas with provinces of the highest total tax value. Break tie in alphabetical order by area name. Wait, diverse faiths are... So these diverse faith spaces, I haven't been spreading them. Infectious faiths. Protestants of counter-reformed Catholicism are infectious faiths. Revolutionary likewise will spread. No, nothing about diverse faiths. So what the hell is this one? Placing diverse faith tokens instead go in alphabetical order. Oh, if there's no infectious faiths, the diverse faiths go on the board. Yeah, that's how they showed up. Okay, right. So it doesn't tell me how to pick the first cluster, which I think I'll go with this as well. This is going to be kind of complicated to calculate. It's so much easier to look at all the other stuff. So I have a cluster here, which has a tax value of 4. A cluster here with a tax value of 5. Which one do we start with? Starting with Protestant. Okay. Well, Protestant's all there is. 4, 5. 5 sounds pretty good. Will we find better? I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 in Bavaria, Swabia. So that's the big cluster. That's the cluster fuck. That stretches from Aquitaine up through here, down into here, over here, and there. So that's just one big cluster. And it's going to spread from there, and I guess, again, we favor the place with, let's get 4 of these. I don't know if there's going to be 4, but I think it's a good idea. Okay. So that's going to come out of here to the most wealthy area. Now, this is Tyrol. That's 4, 5, 2, 3, 4. We got anything stupidly rich? 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got a lot of 5s. Probably break ties in alphabetical order by area name, which I think is idiotic, but whatever. So that's the Rhineland. That's a 5. Tyrol, Austria's a 5. Bohemia's a 5. Looks like Austria is going Protestant. If I can find them. Okay. Great. Okay. That's the big cluster. Next biggest cluster, I believe, is going to be England. Whew. Is England adjacent to anything? Well, yes. England is adjacent to Ireland, if nowhere else. And that may be it. Basically, I can't come out of here So coming out of, and I'm not sure I would do this next, but it doesn't matter because it's going to be forming another cluster. Oh, Scotland's up there too. How do we choose? Okay, that is going to be Ireland that goes, because Ireland has towns. I guess. I mean, they're conquered. Like, the Scottish towns don't have any markers on them. I don't know if that is valid. Okay. Third most rich area. Looks like it's a 4 for here. I don't think there's all that much. Yeah, like Sweden and all is pretty poor. Oh, Sweden itself hasn't converted. Interesting. How did I do Finland then? I did Finland off of here. I guess that's legitimate. Sweden's gonna go, but out of here, our most wealthy, I don't know how expensive this is. This is probably a 4. Hard to tell because these markers aren't, the wooden ones show differently. Obviously not here. 2, 3, 4, 5. That looks promising. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, it's Castile or Cordoba. Aragon. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Aragon goes Protestant. Good Lord. Told you it's just going to spread, but these places where there's bigger areas, it spreads more impressively. You know, throughout Germany, tiny little markers all over the place. Okay, the final one is the Swedes. Well, maybe. So that's got to come out of here because everything else is gone. This is already Protestant. This is already Protestant. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. Sweden, there's an arrow here. It's very hard to see. It looks pretty easy on the camera, but it's very hard to see for me. That indicates that both of these share the same marker. I think it's done by province though, so this is like a 1-2 province, and this is a 1 province, and they both feed into there. I'm just making shit up. Which to me means that I think Estonia and Livonia convert instead of Sweden. And yeah, everything's going to be fucking Protestant. Just wait till Rome goes Protestant. That'll be fun. Right, it's not far. Right. That was the last event. That was the last player. And we are going to be on the Peace and Rebels phase, and I gotta go play a clan war. We did the manual, removed the truces. NPR invasions, there weren't any. There's only one war in play right now, and that's the Saxon War. The 30 Years' War, which is just gonna be this little puny thing as far as I can tell. Sure, there was this big buildup and everything, but this feels like the actuality of it. Kind of the thing is triggered, and the cards came out, which were not in play yet until deck 3, that allowed, you know, the Austrians to fuck around with and try to take over things and stuff along that line. So kind of underwhelming for the 30 Years' War. Anyway, we already talked about that, didn't we? The rebels then went, and we see England, their economy being put in the tank because their big cities are gone. They might actually, well, they don't have an army anymore, but they might actually end up on not making any money this turn if they're not lucky. Let's see what else. Over here, Aragon, completely independent, as is Sicily itself, the islands, Malta, and Belarus are not under attack by rebels. Now, the funny thing is, if you've got rebels who are in an area without unrest, they're not going to siege it. They move on and find other areas that are on unrest, which is kind of weird. It's like you would expect Aragon to be like, I don't know, trying to restore itself or something, although technically they're still in a royal marriage with the Spaniards. You'd think that would be a war or something, right? But no, it's not. It's just this weird mechanism that doesn't feel like it represents the kind of things that, say, the old EU or the computer game particularly do. Spain does get claims to the areas that they lost, though. So we can try to take them back. But yeah, these are going to spread into areas with unrest if they can find them. If they can't, I guess they just sit there. No, you lose one if there's no... Oh, I don't think this goes away. So the way this says is you move all but one to an area with blah, blah, blah. If there were no eligible adjacent areas to move to, well, that is probably not a concern. Let's look. If there's no unrest there, I'm going to just remove it, because I think that makes sense. And I don't see any unrest there, because there would be no eligible areas to move to. So the rebellion was successful, and I really don't know how this is all supposed to, it feels still too abstract to me. Okay. Peace here is an interesting concept. I get a lot of points if I take this over from the 30 Years' War. And that's where my inclination is. But I start thinking to myself, there are other options. You could force a conversion. You get like only 3 prestige. I'm going to get more than that by owning it. Sure, I'll be owning an area that's Protestant. It looks like I'm going Protestant anyway. I got to do something about that. I don't know what it is. So maybe I'm in more trouble than I think. I could just vassalize them. That certainly doesn't seem like a good idea. So yeah, I think the big thing would be to force a conversion. Unless I had some goal or something to do that. And I know we had one at one point. I just don't see myself doing it. So I guess the Austrians are just going to seize all of Saxony. I should do the same with Ireland. Now the English with Ireland, they definitely wanted to expend their claim, because if I lose Irish territories now, I get claim to them. For the Austrians, it was more of a question, but I could resolve all of the unrest. I had apparently dealt with one before. The only thing that I'm giving up is the possibility of leaving that claim there and going for whatever, Nuremberg, I think it is there. Just guessing, because it looked like I saw Nuremberg on the board, but I can't be sure. But yeah. And you don't get anything particularly for the annexation, but you know, it's kind of useful. Well, you get the towns. I just gained 3 here. That means 3 of these cubes go away. And that gets me. It might be at a wash for income. You know, I lost 4 or 5 points of cities. I think one of them was already under siege. 4 points of cities there, but I gained 3 there, so it's not too bad. It is so terrible. So not only does it screw your position up in the game, but you know, the English got hit by this late in the turn. There was really nothing they could do about it. They did what they could and dealt with the problem in Wales, at least. That cost them 5 prestige. Now, also, there's the interregnum. There's one person who has one. Let's see if they can fix that. I don't think so. Okay. So they lose... I should have looked that up. If you hear that, I'm making coffee. I haven't made coffee in a long time. One stability, which sucks, you know, but also, if we had made a royal marriage with someone, it would now be a disputed succession, where someone else, you know, could intervene in us and conceivably do nasty things. All right, on to dissent. Oh boy. I guess we start with Poland, since they have the first player marker. I don't know if it matters much. Notice something here. Players who have vassals in any areas with a religion other than their state religion must, in one affected area, either remove a cube or add an unrest. I don't think it's had an impact. It may have. But essentially, I can just say, hey, for a dip cube, I can avoid an unrest marker, and I think that's worth it. It's not like I was perfectly set up that I guarantee that I'm going to get a subjugation off. I don't think I have one in my hand either. I played one this turn, so not very likely. But just keep that in mind, that multiple vassal states, something like Lithuania or whatever, you can resolve that that religious conflict fairly easily comparatively. Something of a corollary to that, which I didn't really consider. I don't think it's affected anything. But in areas like here, where I have a vassal and control, I get a double whammy. Now, the lucky thing is, tolerance is sufficient to handle my situation, actually. I have two non-Muslim realms, this and this, I believe. And so tolerance takes care of that. I don't get any religious dissent from that. Wait, yeah, they're Muslim now. Yeah, I've done a really good job of converting everything to Islam. But I do have to spend something here. Again, I think a cube is not a bad choice. France and Spain, again, in a boatload of hurt that Protestant disease is spreading throughout their territory. England, on the other hand, they're religiously fine. They just have some kind of power struggle going on among the Protestants. That is the English Civil War, right? There wasn't a serious pro-Catholic faction. The Catholics liked the protection, obviously, of the king. One of the harder choices I made, Austria here, is they chose to make their capital in unrest. The idea there is if the capital goes into revolt, I have an opportunity to become Protestant. And I think Protestantism is the way to go. Even though I have the papacy under control and would lose my points for that and whatever. You know, I'm willing to take the risk because I don't see Protestantism as being stoppable easily. I'm already getting stomped by it, and it'll cause me problems if I go Protestant. It'll cause me big problems because, like, the Hungarians are going to be still Catholic, and obviously I still have some Catholic territories elsewhere as well. But it does provide for an interesting possibility, which is diverting Protestants into Turkish territory. Boy, that'll be weird. I'm not quite sure that I believe that Protestantism, I don't think it does. I don't think it does. Maybe I don't want to do this. This is dangerous. I think it only affects Catholic. I think it's only Catholic and Protestant. Place a Protestant or counter-reform token in an area adjacent to a cluster of the same type. I don't know, man. Looks like it can spread to anything. No. Orthodox or Muslim areas may not be chosen. Diverse faith can be. But yeah, okay. Fair enough. Because that would be a really ugly solution for the Austrians, is to start converting Muslims en masse. You know, Protestantism, I just don't believe that Protestantism or Counter-Reform Catholicism would impact them. I'm not sure about revolutionary ideals. Historically, they really didn't. The first time you start seeing that sort of nationalism taking place in Turkey is right around the end of the 19th century, so with the Young Turks and whatnot. I had to guess at my coffee because I was near the end of a can, and it looked like I had enough, that maybe even too much, that I had the right amount. But the cans, the way they're constructed, the rim prevents you from just like spilling it out and being able to do things at all reasonable. And then even then, you know, getting it into the scoop from, I guess you could put it in paper instead of on the plastic, is just a pain in the ass. So I didn't have a really good estimate as to my normal strength of coffee. It ended up, unfortunately, too weak, which totally spoils everything I could do now. I guess I could make more coffee that's stronger and mix it, but my stomach can't handle too much coffee. So, but I was thinking, even before I tasted it, was I didn't understand. You hear these people, and I've talked to a few people, or online, you know, or encountered a few people. And I know people in real life too who treat coffee as though it's like, I don't know, like chocolate or something. Like it's so very bitter that they absolutely need to add sugar and maybe milk to it and everything. I'm like, damn, it doesn't taste bitter at all to me. You know, I mean, obviously this doesn't. Coffee gets bitter if you leave it out in the open air for too long, or if you make it way too strong. But, you know, I mean, espresso is not bitter, right? And that's pretty fucking strong. And, you know, I saw someone complaining about a percolator because it makes the coffee too strong and bitter and needs, you know, tons of milk and sugar and whatever. And I'm just like, wait, a percolator? Seriously, man? You know, I got a drip, which, you know, I just have because it's convenient more than anything else. I think I left, and I'm kind of sad about this, my old espresso pot, or pots. I had two. I had a huge one. These were ones that you put on the stove and steam the water through. And then a little one. And these guys are, you know, you can still buy them, and they're not ridiculously expensive or anything. But they're much more expensive. They were always much more expensive than a percolator was. And they're certainly more expensive than a drip machine. Probably up there with, you know, I don't know. Probably not as expensive as an espresso maker type thing, but I don't want that, you know. But yeah, because they were very heavily built. I think I left both of those with my first wife. And I'm kind of sad about that because I always liked them. Maybe I remembered and brought them, but then they're, you know, at my mom's house. Well, my dead mom's house. Now my dad's house, but whatever. All right, where the hell am I? It's time to roll the dice. That's what I've been evading. Of tolerance, it's kind of weird. It's very important what order you select the rolls in, so you can make your decisions as to when to make the replacement rolls or whatever. So, like, you know, you probably don't want to make them unless it's a revolt anyway. But I lost a cube, which I didn't want to lose. I lost a couple of bucks. Who cares? It was actually it was a roll that took 2 cubes away, but am I going to re-roll? No, because I had another one further on that I had to roll, which turned out fine. It was a pitchfork. Bad stuff just happened to England. I wanted to talk about something else too, though. The Spanish had actually put Salamanca into unrest because well, it doesn't really help. No. I was thinking if it went independent, but it can't, it's core. So, yeah. If it went independent, it would actually grow into a larger city again. The English, you know, I'm partway here, but there was never a time when I had owned or vassalized all provinces in either Scotland or Ireland, and there were no rebels or blinker-doinkers in their realm. So I failed to get that, and now the Pale, oh, that's English core. Never mind. Never mind. That's why I left that in unrest. The Pale just revolted too. Oh, painful, painful stuff. Well, not a whole hell of a lot happened there, but, you know, like Spain and France got problems coming. England's problems are multiplying, spreading over to Ireland. They have no army, right? You know, just ugliness happening everywhere. But yeah, Austria didn't suffer particularly. Spain actually got kind of lucky. Things like this, part of the Burgundian alliance, which would join Burgundy if it goes free. Oh, I was worried about the French having that problem. It turns out, oh, that's a vassal in a... Is that a Catholic area? Seriously? There's a little Catholic enclave up here. Well, it cuts down this way as well. Okay. I thought that was kind of neat, but yeah. And I mean, things were interspread in that sort of way. Okay, that's going to put us to the income phase and to me, to taking a break. Because it's just, I don't know, there's a certain fatigue level to me standing and doing things. And this is actually a hard part of the game, is this sort of very mechanical, do this, do that, do the other, sequence of actions that, I don't know. You know, I usually don't mind a lot of mechanical aspects to a game, but there's a lot of it all at once here. Big expansion into Lithuania. Poland's income has definitely gone to the point where they're starting to take debt on, whatever, inflation, whatever you want to call it, but in terms of a mechanism, it's treated as debt in this game, instead of reducing below 50 or whatever. It's kind of interesting how the bank impacts that, right? So you have a choice, either pay an administrative cube or pay debt, or gain debt. With the central bank, your debt is twice as big, which is not a good thing. In addition, now they have an army, not quite, but to approximately rival the Turkish one. I'm two units less. The Turkish are at their maximum, but yeah. Poland is now a mighty power. A couple of things. One, I noticed the Turks kept an advisor. They don't have many cubes. Thinking, wow, maybe that was a mistake. But, you know, it's an exceptional year card. That's a useful card to hold. The French did the same, but the card they held, a subjugate. Man, giving away a subjugate, yeah, is just painful. Those are so powerful. Did I err? Maybe. But it was something I would have had to choose earlier. And I can see the argument either way, so I'm going to leave it. They actually have a few more cubes. I feel really bad about the Turks, because with no advisors and a lousy ruler, Christopher. Sultan Christopher. But another thing, an observation, and that made me actually come around with talking about this, as opposed to jamais en France. You get half your exhausted pool back each time. Now, that makes sense. A big country might have a huge exhausted pool. They should get a bigger proportion back. But it kind of bothers me. Yes, there's a minimum and a maximum, 3 to 6, right? You will always get 3 back, even if you only have 3 units exhausted or whatever. And you can never get more than 6 back, even if you're a big country, which I have a little bit more iffiness about, but it's hard to manage a large country, so whatever. But I'm trying to remember what my butt was. Yeah. My butt was, let's say I have 4 here, right? If I have 4 and I'm, a small country, I still get the same 3 back as a really huge country like France would, right? That's a little disturbing. It feels to me like it should be a proportion of the total manpower rather than of your exhausted pool. Let me just make sure. Yeah, it's just exhausted. And I'm not sure I understand the meaning behind that or the mechanism behind that, because the actual manpower available and everything scales more to the size of the country. And now again, I understand why there's a limit of 6, right? But it seems to me that if I exhausted so much of my manpower pool, if anything, I've killed off a lot of the young men and whatever in the last generation. So the next generation should be actually harder to pull in more forces. Now, what is harder? I don't know, because you're talking about the available pool and whatever. So, you may be talking about the actual population reduction. As to how a couple of other games handle this. Empires in Arms, which just covers the Napoleonic struggles, sets a manpower rating to each territory in the game. And that's just how much manpower they provide you. And it kind of doesn't matter, It makes sense in that. There's no room for those countries to get significantly larger or less population. So I think the population differences here actually make a lot of sense. And they're kind of represented here, but you might be actually cutting into the actual population. On the other hand, if you have that much exhausted, maybe it should affect your income too, but you've been paying for armies and whatnot. It could just be incorporated into there. So I think it works kind of well compared to that. Let's compare it to the original EU. The original EU has nothing like this. The original EU has each nation in each era has a certain size of army counters. Each of their armies has a fixed size based on the era you're in, and having nothing to do with other decisions you've made. For the most part, I think it's assumed that those decisions are fixed, but I don't like that as much. And having nothing to do with how badly you got beaten up. The only thing that limits your army is what sort of the historical national size of your army was. That's one limit. And the other is how much money you have kicking around. It finds itself in a nasty position. Remember that nice big fleet I built? Well, I'm only allowed to move 2 ships into small ports. My large ports have both fallen. I can stay out here and pay the money for my damaged ships, which probably is what I'll choose to do, because the cost of building the ships is so high. Cash is not really that big a problem. I'm probably going to about break even in this horrible situation. It may be something of a problem, but I really don't want to lose one of my big $10 ships, especially since France has 2 as well. And, in a large port, and this is what I forgot. Large port counts as 2 ports, but you can hold 6 ships if they're all in the same fleet. But I don't have a large port. This is completely contrary to the view that another game, and I think I mentioned this, Armada has. In Armada, you can have your ships spread out among ports, right? The idea that the English could only, historically, in the time of the Armada, both the English and Spaniards had their fleets spread out significantly. And they'd have to gather them together at sea before operating. Because they're just, it might not be very far at sea. It might be anchored in the harbor or something, or near the harbor. But the whole point was that you can only kind of maintain and repair and whatnot without being out, out in the water where it's harder to access the docks and, all the resources of the town. With a certain amount of ships. So at the beginning of each spring, or the beginning of the game, there's a bunch of ships sitting in ports. And it also reduces your cost to move them into dry docks and whatnot, which I think is the equivalent of what's happening here. But the concept that, a whole bunch of ports, things like Hull and stuff, they're not even represented here, were major, it might be Northumberland, major important place, although, isn't it down here? I don't remember. I don't think there's a major port up as far north as Northumberland, which is given a port marker. It wasn't the case that you were limited to only the major ports, but and maybe it's an abstraction that represents something else. I can't think of it offhand. And I realized I made an error, or didn't notice something. There's unrest in the colonial areas. So let's roll for Spain first. Okay, Spain would have owed $2 more, no big deal. They would have had it. England resolved its unrest. To Austria, I ran downstairs, I realized. I have a batch of Purina and Rico Chow that I made. Now, this is something I don't usually make. I'm actually kind of surprised you don't get more colonists just for having colonies. It feels like that should almost snowball. It does make sense that you need to have room to put them, but it also seems like once you're established, you should just be generating them. I don't know. The Spaniards, I keep generating them for this. I don't know if that's a colonial claim or not. I assume it is. I couldn't find anything in the rules, but I didn't look very hard. Like I may have just looked in my mind. But anyway, what Purina and Rico Chow is, it's basically cornbread. It comes in it's the box cheap cornbread mix. It's something I have a couple of boxes of kicking around, kind of like some pastas that, my wife and I used to eat that I generally don't think of, which is what I had noodles last night. But I'm really kind of breaking into those stocks of stuff that has sort of fallen off the radar. I have 4 cans of chicken that was here when I moved in. 3 of them. One of them I used, and my wife was so happy when I opened that up because it had no fat in it or anything. It was pretty decent, but you can't even buy canned chicken. I don't know where the fuck they got it from. At least in the stores around me. It may have been a food pantry type of thing, but it kind of doesn't look like it. But yeah, this is something I used to make these cornbread mixes regularly, and I really liked them, and I still do. I just don't tend to eat them. I don't know why. I really don't know why. I was eating them before my wife and I got together, but then I don't know, maybe that there was regularly cooked food. Not very cooked. She didn't really know how to cook, and I was like I am, which means I cook very, very seldomly. But spaghetti or something like that, or frozen stuff that we would eat together or whatever. And I've gotten kind of in the habit of that kind of thing, and just don't even really consider this like a meal or anything like that, or a treat. It's more a treat than a meal, but I'm going to eat a lot of it tonight, so it's more a meal for me right now. Yeah, and when I used to make this stuff, because it was like, I don't know, it used to be like 20 cents a box. I don't know what it is now. It's probably a lot more. Everything's gotten, like ramen noodles are like 3 for $1, which to me is just crazy. They should be 5. I got used to 4 for $1. I was willing to accept that, but it's like, what am I buying? But then, I think it's like not much more food than a candy bar or whatever. But then I think a candy bar is fucking expensive too, isn't it? I don't know. Anyway, another dead friend of mine, Fat Tom, named it Purina Enrico Chow, and it's just stuck for me since then. Which reminds me, another friend of mine drove by a sign for Purina Roach Chow. Might have been my first wife. I don't remember. But somebody did. And that's always stuck in my head, too. Like, who the fuck buys that? Scientists or whatever, but, Okay, someone else who was actually sitting on a hell of an advisor, or an advisor that I didn't really want to hold, is the Austrians. Do I want the royal marriage terribly? See, I didn't have much money. This one I think I'm going to play. I'm so shitty in money. I didn't realize my income was this bad. Let's play the card that I know I don't want to play ever. This one. And that would be just before I passed. Squares didn't get hit, or he would have gotten hit. So that's going to cost me $2 for an extra cube there. Why am I cheating this? I really get the feeling that I wasn't thinking about looking at my cards or whatever in that sense during that last few rounds or whatever. I was playing too furiously or whatever. In addition, I also get a couple from that track, which God knows how many times I've forgotten. And I think I've taken care of everything. It's so hard because I can't really hold this when I'm over on this side. It's just a matter of I don't have the table space for the rule book on both sides of the table. So that's going to put me in the cleanup phase. Right? No, I haven't done everything yet. I forgot to score prestige. So how many Catholic players are there? Because Austria has absolute control of the church right now. How many Catholic players are there? Well, how many aren't there? That one's not, and that one's not, which means there are 4, minus 1 is 3, and that's the maximum anyway. So Austria gets a nice boost. We're also going to get some decent points off the power struggle, which I have not yet recorded, and I really need to. Okay. Battleground areas. Okay. First, we look at when a power struggle is scored, all players who satisfy the conditions. That's the additional prestige. Okay. First battleground. It's 1 for tax value of provinces they control, half for vassals, 1 for being the only person in there with them. I just don't remember this. And 1 for having at least a marriage or an alliance in each place. All right. So one by one we go through them. Oop, forgot this. All right, let's pick this one up first. That's 1, 2, 3 for Austria. And no one else. This one, I believe that's going to be 1 for Austria. I don't know when I do the HRE cubes. There should be an extra cube on the board. Let's figure out what I'm going to do with that. It doesn't really make much difference. What's the upcoming? The upcoming is Spanish succession. That might have something that affects me. Flanders, Wallonia, Burgundy, Lombardy, Naples, Aragon, and stuff in North America, or in the Americas. Nothing that really helps me. I can't get into Flanders and Wallonia, etc. Is there a reason for 2 cubes instead of 1? I can't think of one. This has not left the empire yet. Sweet. Let's put a cube there. Okay. Let's go back to the next country, and now I've lost my ability to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it for Austria. This is pretty sweet for Austria, to tell you the truth. Up here is 1 for Poland. They did not gain control that they wanted. This one down here looks like 1 for Austria. Catching up, man. I told you this was going to be worth a lot. 1 for Austria. And, you know, the Turks can't possibly play in this shit without something crazy happening. Over here, we're looking at 1, 2, no. 1 for Spain, 1 for France, because France only gets a half, but it's 1, I think. Okay, so Spain and France each get 1 for that. Anywhere else? That appears to be all of them. Okay, that's the first part of this. Then we have additional prestige for the thing itself, which is, I really shouldn't be up here right now. If 3 or more elector areas are Catholic, oh fuck. 3 elector areas, what the hell are they? Brandenburg, I think there's 5. Bohemia, which doesn't count. Okay. Brandenburg's Catholic. Bohemia doesn't count. Catholic. Not Catholic, maybe not an elector. Catholic. 3 or more are Catholic. I really hate having to hunt them down. That's really not easy, and I can't even see them. I can only kind of remember them. Increase the imperial status by 1. Excellent. If you were to decrease it by 2, then the emperor scores prestige equal to twice the imperial status, 8 minus 4. If they had any allies, they would score half of this. And that is the end of the 30 Years' War. Unfortunately, now it's time to place the stuff for Spanish succession. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 places. Because of how crowded this is, I'm representing all 4 of these with this. It's basically everything along this eastern coast of North America is involved in Spanish succession. Why? I'm not sure. This wasn't really all that fought over. You could make arguments. The hard thing is, most of this wasn't Spanish, but it is a time when the English were really, you know, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there were skirmishes and whatnot with the French, but whatever. Elsewhere, though, we see it running down the old Burgundian alliance inheritance area for the most part, and the Castilian alliance or inheritance. Now this is interesting because now Turkey, of course, has just sort of inherited another pile of points for later, and these are points that Austria is going to have a hard time getting. I might be able to interject myself into Burgundy. That probably won't be too hard, but getting myself in the Netherlands, oh, I don't know. It also depends on what the cards are going to be for this. Now, There was something else I'm supposed to figure out here, and I don't remember what the hell it is. I don't know. But yeah, it is an interesting kind of situation that, like, you know, this is spread out, and normally Turkey wouldn't have a reasonable stake in it, although they could interject into Naples. They're always available to do that. One of the things it does, though, these power plays, if you know them ahead of time, or you know that there are going to be events from history that are going to make areas important, it does make sense that, like, look how fucking important Flanders and Wallonia has been throughout the game, right? I mean, not just, you know, some of it from player actions, but some of it from this stuff. The Italian Wars has it in it. Balkans obviously did not. The 30 Years' War had it in it. And now Spanish Succession has it in it. And that makes sense. Remember, a long time ago in this video, and at other times in other videos, well, obviously I wouldn't be saying it at the same time in some... A long time ago in the videos of this game, not in this video, and occasionally in videos of other games, I mentioned the theory that the English goals throughout all of, pretty much all of their modern period, or even pre-modern, from the Renaissance onward at least, dominated, were dominated actually through the medieval period, even in the medieval period, were dominated with control of the Scheldt. That no major power could have control of it. And the reason for that initially is very easy, because the trade through Flanders and whatnot was so important and so valuable that, you know, England had to associate itself with that. The trade was very important to them. But it sort of maintains itself, and you can argue that that same concept gets you at least to World War I, and maybe even World War II. Although the proximate cause in World War II had nothing to do with, like, Belgium or whatever. But it was always sort of this, hey, we can't let someone else dominate our easy route into the center of Europe for trade. It's not expressed as a policy directly, but national interests, you know, national actions and whatnot follow national interests, right? And throughout the entire period, there's just this consistent attitude that no major land power in Europe could control that kind of the trade route going into Central Europe, into Germany and, you know, whatnot. And just such an interesting theory, really. I don't know. Oh, I forgot a truce. My cornbread thing. It's been a long time since I made it, but apparently I was up here long enough that it cooled too much and kind of stuck to the pan. So I was breaking out little pieces, like little cracker pieces or broken cookies or something. But that reminds me, that happens every time. It's just usually I eat half of it before it happens. This time I ate more than half because I'm hungry, or was. Okay. Anything exciting in cleanup? Dismanned, update. Oh, we did that. Yeah, we did all this. We didn't do this. None of those. No hearts on the board. Imperial cubes to match Imperial power. Okay, this is the time when that happens. I always run into this and don't remember it, but... Okay. All units remove tag chips. There shouldn't be any. Pass the first player token. Who's the new one? Poland again. Yeah. Okay. How about Turkey? Brown status markers. Move these over. And as usual, I'm going to give, move them all the way over. This is kind of like a coin type thing, right? Kind of reminds me of the coin design. Probably was influenced by it. Okay. I like to look at what the cards are going to be on this part of the video, give you a hint of where we're going. All right, let's take a look at. We've got a plague. Okay. We've had these before. It comes with some religious infection and skull and crossbones is probably pirates. Royal Letter of Bohemia. Defenestration of Prague. This should have already happened since the 30 Years' War was triggered, but add a Protestant token, 3 armies, and unrest to all of Bohemia. The Emperor gains a claim in a Protestant HRE area. Why? I mean, seriously, why? If Bohemia was part of the empire and owed something to the emperor, sure, but it's not the case. And may appoint any general from the discards for free. You gain a military and an alliance with an NPR in the HRE with the same faith as you. Or you could confirm religious freedom. The emperor loses 2 prestige and 1 imperial power. Well, very interesting. And this doesn't make sense. Like, it's going to be unrest in Bohemia, which is anti-Polish, and unrelated problems in in the empire. It's one of the problems that you have with using these fixed events as opposed to some sort of structure that can create all of the real events. Of course, that latter goal is so impossible. It's the one thing like that impressed me so much with the original EU was this: how could you be willing to like take the concept that like Empires of the Middle Ages has, for example, and try to abstract everything to a level where it all kind of makes sense, and instead say, no, we're going to go with more detail. And gosh, this galley should be in port. I'm pretty sure I didn't pay for it. We're gonna not abstract everything. We're gonna go into enough detail that you can see things. But the only way we can do that is to have fixed events, right? And here's one. It's a Polish one. I don't know, Khmelnytsky uprising. Crush them. Place rebels for each town belonging to a non-Orthodox realm in eastern Ukraine, western Ukraine, Moldavia, or Crimea. Well, there's a reason not to convert things. Oops. So this is still Orthodox. This is still Orthodox. I don't know why I have a marker there and not there. Probably because it predates. How are we doing on Orthodox? We are really behind, so I'm going to pull this off too. Okay. Yeah. And add unrest to half of the towns in each area, rounded down. Poland gains a military and 2 prestige, and the player playing this gains a military. Or grant autonomy. And again, it's not Poland that gets to choose this. Poland loses 2 stability, $8 and 2 points of prestige. Ouch. I don't know which is worse, right? A relatively large, widespread uprising or these points. Poland, though, is not one of the leaders. And that may be a factor here. And then we get Jan Kamiras, who's going to be a pretty decent, an okay military leader, but not a good king particularly. The Poles probably don't want to pick this, much as they don't want someone else to pick it and choose a result that is worse for them. There's the chance that it just goes unchosen, right? How good a chance? Hard to tell. This is a worse one. But if Poland picks this, they can just screw the empire. And Bohemia will not be a problem at all. And you could say, this has something to do with maybe Bohemia wanting to rejoin the empire or something like that, because how do you rejoin the empire? How indeed. I know how you leave. Reincorporating. When all provinces in the area that left the HRE are owned or vassalized by HRE members or the empire. Okay, so Bohemia, which is its own country, will remain independent of the empire unless somebody actually goes in and attacks it. Yeah, so this is really an appealing choice for the Poles, on the other hand, where they can just not take any harm at all and hurt the Austrians a bit. So that's kind of neat. Oh, and that is the end of this video, I guess, actually. I came up here knowing that, but I forgot it as I worked through because, well, that's how my brain works. Anything exciting? I mean, this has been a vile turn for the English, that's for sure. Spain recovered a fair amount because of Cromwell. I'm sorry, Oliver. Oliver. But the loss of Aragon and Sicily, yeah, that, you know, but we kind of regained Flanders somehow, and part of the Netherlands as well. So that's kind of neat. I mean, we're in better shape in some ways and worse in others. You can see we're still holding all of Morocco. Well, minus, no, not all of it. We're still holding a lot of Morocco, for whatever that matters. And who else? The Austrians were able to. The 30 Years' War was a minor event, really. Like the whole power play, but also, well, the power play, the Austrians prepared for that and got themselves into a good position point-wise. The war card itself was really minor. They went and took Saxony out. And, you know, they were hoping to go Protestant from it all. And now maybe they start converting Protestant areas, or, geez, can we just change religion? You can in the other one, in the original. I think that's something you can do here, right? It might not be a bad choice. Where would it be? I don't know. I'm probably looking right where I would find it. Change state religion. Starting with age 2, this action allows a realm to change its state religion from Catholic to Protestant. Otherwise, changing the state religion can only happen through an event. Now, this is a generic action, so I guess you have to do something. This action has no monarch power cost. It's not a minor action. Sure the hell what shouldn't be. You lose 2 prestige and a stability. Maybe not good, but you remove a marriage and 5 cubes from the religion that you're abandoning, but they go into the same faith as your new religion, which might be kind of, well, the cubes do. And you gain unrest in each of your areas in the religion that you abandon, then you roll rebel dice. The fact that you roll, that you take it on unrest everywhere and then roll rebel dice in the midst of a turn, man, that's probably too expensive. I'd rather be sort of triggered into it by the advanced roll. Alternatively, if there's at least 1 counter-reform token on the board, there is not, following the Council of Trent event, yeah, sorry, it didn't happen. Catholic players may pay 3 admin to become counter-reform and place the counter-reform token in their capital area without suffering any of the consequences. I didn't realize that. However, the Council of Trent still had to happen, and it did not happen. The papacy, the Catholic Church basically decided to surrender to Protestantism, as far as I can tell. All right. Anything else exciting we want to talk about on the end? And, you know, then I come back up and I don't repeat everything, but I give a summary of what the last era had. Poland, the big thing was gaining Lithuania. That was pretty huge. Poland is now a massive power. Austria maybe entering a period of decline. Doesn't look like it with their points, but the thing is, now they're facing the consequences of the religious expansion of Protestantism. And, you know, that should have England sitting real pretty, but England's a mess because of the English Civil War. Spain, yeah, they recovered a lot of their position and then got hit hard. So everything's in hell. Turkey and Poland look like they're in pretty good shape, though. Turkey doesn't have a lot of cubes, so they're not going to do much next turn.